Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. Today, we are going to be tackling something that I think a lot of people can relate to. And it's all about family dynamics and maybe some choices in relationships that we wouldn't necessarily make, but when other people in our family make them, it's like, whoa, hold on a second. So today we are diving into a Reddit post that is titled, "Father is dating a girl a month older than me." So get ready, because this one has a lot of twists and turns, and it's going to have us thinking about boundaries, for sure.
It's so interesting that you bring this up because this is something that I think we all can kind of relate to on some level. These anxieties that we have about what is acceptable within families, especially when it comes to romantic relationships.
Yeah, for sure. And, just to see for everybody a little bit of background, this story is basically about a woman who finds out that her father, who owns a medical marijuana dispensary, is dating someone her own age. And not just anyone, someone that he actually hired to work at the dispensary just a couple of months ago.
Wow. So right away we have some major red flags here. We've got an age gap, which is already, a hot topic, but the fact that the girlfriend is also a subordinate in this case, I mean, that really adds a whole other level of complexible. There are definitely some questions about power dynamics and potential coercion, even if everything is technically consensual.
Yeah, and if that wasn't enough, there's like a whole secrecy element to this too. So apparently the father initially completely denied that there was anything romantic going on between them. And he even went as far as comparing his daughter to the new employee, saying that, like, oh, she's immature and I would never date a subordinate.
Huh. That denial was really interesting to me because it kind of suggests that on some level he knew that what he was doing wasn't going to be received well. It makes you wonder, was he trying to avoid conflict, or is this maybe a sign of something deeper, like a pattern of dishonesty?
It really makes you think. And understandably, the daughter is feeling a lot of things about this whole situation: disappointment, disgust, even betrayal. And to make matters worse, her father is basically trying to brush it all off and downplay the whole thing, like her feelings are totally invalid.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, her reaction is completely understandable. It's not just the shock of the age gap and the fact that it's his employee. It's also this feeling of being lied to and disregarded. It really makes you question his judgment and whether he's really thinking about the impact of his actions on his daughter.
It's true. And get this, she also revealed that he wasn't really around much when she was growing up. Her grandmother actually raised her, and to top it off, he even disapproved of her marriage last year because he thought that she and her husband were too young.
Wow, now that's really interesting. It adds a whole other layer to his behavior now, doesn't it? It seems like maybe there's a pattern of him making choices that really prioritize his own desires without considering the impact on others, especially his daughter. It makes you wonder if he's even capable of genuine emotional connection or if he's constantly seeking something to fill a void.
It really does. And this story gets even crazier because you won't believe what he did when he whisked his new girlfriend off to Puerto Rico.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
He actually tricked his elderly mother into covering shifts at the dispensary while he was gone. It wasn't until later that she found out the truth.
Oh my goodness. That is a whole other level of deception. He's not just hiding the relationship, he's actively manipulating other people to keep it going. It really shows you the lengths that he's willing to go to maintain this facade. And remember, the daughter was the bookkeeper for the business.
Right? Exactly. So not only is she dealing with this emotionally, but she also has to see it all play out at work. Talk about an awkward situation. And she specifically told her father that she would be uncomfortable if he pursued this relationship.
Wow. So he completely disregarded her feelings and boundary. That adds another layer of betrayal to this whole situation.
Definitely. It makes you wonder if he's even capable of seeing beyond his own desires. Does he even understand the impact of his actions on his daughter? Or is he so wrapped up in this new relationship that he's become blind to everything else?
That's a really good question. And, we see this a lot in situations where there's a big power imbalance. The person in the position of power can get so used to getting their way that they lose sight of the needs and feelings of those around them.
And there's another detail that the daughter shared about the new girlfriend that makes this whole thing even more questionable.
Okay, you can't leave me hanging. What is it? Don't keep me in suspense. What's the detail about the girlfriend?
The girlfriend lost both of her parents.
Oh, wow. That definitely changes things. Now we're talking about a whole other level of vulnerability. It makes you wonder if maybe the father was drawn to someone who might be more easily influenced or dependent because of her circumstances. It's a sensitive topic for sure, but it definitely adds another layer of complexity to this situation.
Yeah, and the daughter actually speculates that her father might not have pursued this relationship if the girlfriend's parents were still around. She thinks that maybe he was looking for a dynamic that would be less complicated and less scrutinized.
That's a really interesting point. It brings up the idea of accountability. If the girlfriend had a strong family support system, would the father have felt as comfortable pursuing this relationship? Or would he have been more hesitant knowing that he would face judgment and possible intervention from her family?
Right. It makes you think about the potential for manipulation, even if it wasn't intentional on the father's part. He's in a position of power as her employer and as someone who's offering emotional support during a difficult time.
Exactly. It's a delicate balance, and it's easy to see how those lines could get blurred. And you know what else is interesting? The daughter ultimately decided to distance herself from this whole mess. She quits her job at the dispensary, and she's limiting contact with her father.
Wow, that's a big decision, especially considering it's her family and her livelihood. It really shows how uncomfortable she was and how determined she is to set boundaries.
It definitely shows a healthy approach to self-preservation. She's recognizing that she can't be involved in a situation that feels morally wrong, and she's putting her own well-being first. It's a powerful message to her father that his actions have consequences, and she's not willing to just accept them.
Absolutely. And it's interesting how this situation has sparked so many different reactions on Reddit. Some people are completely on the daughter's side, calling out the father for his bad judgment and potentially exploitive behavior.
Yeah, that makes sense. A lot of people are sensitive to anything that even hints at a power imbalance, especially when it involves someone younger who might be more vulnerable. It's natural to want to protect those who might be at risk.
But there are also those who are taking a more neutral stance. They're saying that both the father and the girlfriend are adults, and they're free to make their own choices, even if those choices seem a little strange to others.
Right. This brings up a classic dilemma: individual autonomy versus societal expectations. Where do we draw the line between personal freedom and behavior that might be considered morally wrong? It's a debate that never seems to end, and this situation perfectly illustrates how complex it can be.
Some people have even gone so far as to say that the girlfriend might be the one taking advantage of the situation. They point to the financial benefits she's getting from the relationship, like driving the father's car and going on vacations.
That's an interesting perspective. It kind of flips the script and makes us reconsider the power dynamics at play. It challenges that automatic assumption that the older man is always the one in control.
Exactly. And it brings up the age-old question of motivation. Is the girlfriend truly interested in the father, or is she more interested in the lifestyle he could provide? It's impossible to know for sure, but it definitely adds another layer of intrigue to the story.
And it's important to remember that these online forums can sometimes amplify certain narratives. People tend to gravitate toward the most dramatic or scandalous interpretations, which might not reflect the full reality of the situation.
That's so true. It's like a giant echo chamber where certain opinions get louder and it's easy to lose sight of the nuances. But, some commenters also brought up some valid concerns about the legal side of things. They pointed out that dating an employee could open the father up to a lawsuit, especially if things don't end well.
Oh, yeah, that's a real concern. A lot of companies have strict policies against relationships between supervisors and their employees, specifically to avoid these kinds of legal and ethical problems.
And it goes beyond just the legal issues. Think about the impact on the work environment. The daughter mentioned that the girlfriend wasn't doing a great job and customers were complaining, but the father seemed to be ignoring it all.
Ah, yes, the classic case of favoritism. It definitely creates resentment and dysfunction within a team, and when it's the boss's romantic partner getting preferential treatment, it can completely undermine morale and productivity.
It really makes you wonder if the father has even thought about the long-term consequences of his actions. He could be putting his business at risk, his relationships with his family, and maybe even his own financial security.
It's a perfect example of how our personal choices can have far-reaching consequences that go way beyond just ourselves. Sometimes those consequences are unintentional, but they're still very real.
This case definitely highlights the importance of really thinking through our decisions and considering how they might affect everyone involved, not just ourselves. But you know what really struck me about this Reddit thread was the wide range of perspectives. It was like a microcosm of the larger societal debate about age gaps, power dynamics, and family boundaries.
It is fascinating, isn't it? You had people arguing that the daughter was overreacting and should just accept her father's choices, while others were saying she should cut him off completely. And then there were those who shared their own experiences, offering support and advice based on what they'd been through. It really shows us how complex and nuanced human relationships can be.
And how there isn't always one right answer.
Exactly. It's not about judging people or telling them what to do. It's about acknowledging the complexity of the situation and encouraging open and honest communication. And that's where our deep dive goes even deeper, beyond the immediate drama and into some bigger questions.
Yeah, it feels like we've really peeled back the layers of this story, and now we're getting to the heart of what makes it so fascinating. Those kind of like unspoken societal forces that shape how we see things and judge things.
Right, exactly. This isn't just about one family's drama. It's like a reflection of our own anxieties about age and power and all those unwritten rules that we have about relationships. Like, take the age gap, for example. There's this whole societal script about what's considered acceptable or appropriate, and it often plays out in a very gendered
Yeah,
way.
it's like there's this automatic assumption that if an older man is dating a younger woman, he's taking advantage of her or she's being naive. But those same assumptions don't always apply when the woman is older.
Exactly, and those assumptions can be really damaging both to the individuals involved and to our understanding of relationships in general. It's so important to remember that every relationship is unique, and judging based only on age difference ignores the complexity of human connection.
And in this case, those societal judgments are even stronger because the girlfriend is also his employee. It immediately raises questions about consent and whether there's a genuine power imbalance.
Absolutely. It makes you wonder if she was really free to choose to be in this relationship or if the power dynamic played a role in her decision. And this is where the idea of coercive control becomes important. It's basically a pattern of behavior where someone uses subtle manipulation and intimidation to control another person.
So even if there aren't any obvious threats or force, there can still be an element of coercion, especially in a situation like this where one person has authority over the other.
Exactly. And it can be really hard to recognize, especially for someone who's already vulnerable, like the girlfriend in this story who's grieving the loss of her parents.
Right? That vulnerability definitely adds another layer to the story. It makes you wonder if the father was maybe drawn to someone who might be more dependent on him, someone who might be more easily influenced.
That's a great point. It's like he might be fulfilling multiple roles for her romantic partner provider, even a kind of surrogate parent figure. And that can create a really complicated dynamic, especially with the age difference and the power imbalance on top of it.
And then there's the whole issue of secrets and how that erodes trust within the family. The fact that the father lied at first and then tricked his mother into covering for him created this atmosphere of mistrust that's really hard to come back from.
Yeah, secrets can really damage relationships. They create suspicion and resentment and ultimately a sense of isolation. And, the daughter's decision to distance herself is a direct response to that broken trust.
It's like she's saying, I can't be in a relationship where I don't feel safe or respected. And walking away from her job at the dispensary shows how serious she is about setting those boundaries.
It's a powerful way of protecting herself. She's realizing that she can't be part of something that feels wrong, and she's putting her own well-being first. It's a clear message to her father that his actions have consequences, and she's not going to just ignore that.
But this story isn't just about setting boundaries. It's also about the long-term impact of these kinds of decisions. The father's actions have created a ripple effect that goes way beyond just his relationship. He's damaged his relationship with his daughter, potentially hurt his business, and created tension within the family.
It's a good reminder that our choices have consequences that often affect more than just ourselves. We might not always be able to predict how our actions will impact others, but it's important to at least try to consider those possibilities before we make decisions that could have lasting effects.
It all comes back to that question we asked at the beginning. What would you do if you were in the daughter's shoes? It really makes you think about your own values and beliefs about family loyalty and forgiveness.
It reminds us that life doesn't always have easy answers, and even the toughest situations deserve careful thought and compassion. And sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do is take care of yourself, even if it means distancing yourself from people you love.
This deep dive has been quite a journey. We've explored family dynamics, societal expectations, power imbalances, and all the complexities of human relationships. It's definitely been eye-opening.
And remember, this is just one story, one perspective. There are so many others out there, each with its own unique challenges and nuances.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on this case. Head over to our YouTube channel, Shauna Polich, and share your experiences and insights. Let's keep the conversation going.
And if you're interested in more deep dives into the human experience, subscribe to our podcast, Voices of the Soul. We're here to spark thought-provoking conversations and help you navigate this crazy world we live in.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.